Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews. I'm Dave G, and joining me tonight is my partner,
Lee.
And tonight we're taking a look at the brand new Doug Liman movie. Now, normally when a Doug Liman movie comes out, a lot of people are talking about it because, of course, he is the man who has brought us movies in the past, such as Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, the Bourne movies, of course, with Matt Damon. But, of course, because of COVID cinema, this movie has kind of come out with very limited publicity around it, which is kind of strange considering that it stars two of pop culture's biggest stars at the moment in Tom Holland. Of course, we all know him as Spider-Man, and Daisy Ridley from the Star Wars franchise. And if that's not already enough, we've also got the likes of Mads Mikkelsen thrown in there, and Nick Jonas, of course, from the Jonas Brothers as well. So, Chaos Walking, an interesting enough film. It's a dystopian kind of sci-fi movie set in the future, where there's a lot of different things going on. So, I guess to throw it open, we'll talk a little bit about this weird concept in the film called noise, and that is something that surrounds the male characters in this film. It's set on a planet called New Earth, and since the arrival of people from Earth to New Earth, the men have their thoughts being broadcast to for everybody to hear. So it's a kind of strange thing in the film. There are no women on this planet. They've been killed off, we find out at the start of the movie. So when Viola, played by Daisy Ridley, lands on the planet, it's kind of a really, really big thing. I don't want to go too much into the story of this one, though, because there is a lot of spoilers with this film. There's a lot of twists and turns, so there's a lot of different ways to spoil it. But throwing it open first to you, Lee, what did you think of Chaos Walking?
Oh, I thought really that the concept of the noise, which you'll see on the ads, it's no spoiler there, that people's thoughts are heard, and it really makes you have a think about what if everyone could hear my thoughts. When you're having a bad day or a good day, it's really something that's challenging. I found myself sitting there thinking at the start of the movie, Imagine if you're at work and you're having a bad day and a client could hear what you're thinking, or your boss could hear what you're thinking, your friends could hear what you're thinking, just because you're overtired or whatever's going on in your life. You could see that your thoughts could become a safety issue depending on who you're working with or who you're around. It could spoil your relationships, and it could actually cause you to be bullied. It took a little while to get used to hearing the thoughts on top of the lines that the cast also were saying. But once you got into it, it was no longer distracting. At the start, it's a little distracting. That's what I found. But once you get into it and get used to it, then it's not distracting anymore.
Yeah, it's also interesting how I found different characters kind of used their noise. So there's a preacher in this film, played by David Oyelowo, and his character basically punishes other people for what their noise is because he kind of casts judgment on there because of their noise. And we see it very early on scene here where he hits Tom Holland's character for something that he's thinking. Then there's Mayor Prentice, played by Mads Mikkelsen, and his character has learnt to control his noise, so he never lets other people hear what he's thinking or anything like that. And he's kind of really impressed by the fact that Todd is starting to harness his noise. He like the emotions of a teenager, I guess, he sometimes loses control of it and blurts stuff out, but at other times he's using it to his advantage and kind of using it to scare people that stand in his way and things like that. So I really thought that Doug Liman, the director, and also Christopher Ford and Patrick Ness, the screenwriters, actually used the noise quite well in this film, and I think that's almost one of the elements that sets this film apart from movies like Divergent or Maze Runner, because it is kind of similar in style, but that noise element seems to add a real alternative style to it.
Definitely. The other thing I found interesting was seeing Todd Hewitt's character, which played by Tom Holland. His story unfold with his family and community secrets. I thought that was done really well. Viola, played by Daisy Ridley, is typical action of being chased by the bad guys throughout the movie, and Todd, again, Tom Holland's character, assisting her and helping her and supporting her throughout the movie. The movie does show the typical issues of power and control and living in fear at times. I think that if you love animals, just at the start there are a few challenging scenes. Just for myself, when I go into a movie, I like to be aware of that, just because I'm such an animal lover. But there are some really beautiful scenes with animals too.
Yeah, I also love some of the characters in this. I thought they were really kind of well presented. I loved the character of Ben, played by Demian Bichir, the South American actor. He's always kind of had small roles in films like The Hateful Eight, Machete Kills, and films like that. And here he is almost like a father-like character to Todd. And he has such a caring nature, and I think that's one of the things I loved about this movie was quite often in these films, and I love movies like Divergent and also Maze Runner, but they do have a kind of tendency to have their characters that are off to not the main characters, but like the B-grade characters in these films. They often have them played by actors that aren't as good as the other actors, and they don't really bother developing their characters. So I love the fact that the character of Ben was really kind of explored in this film, and that relationship between him and Todd. One of my favourite actors is in this film as well, Mads Mikkelsen. Absolutely love him as an actor, and he's brilliant recently in Another Round, the film that came out. He gets to play a mayor in this film, and from the very start, you're not 100% sure whether the mayor is someone that can be trusted or whether he can't be trusted, and I thought that really came from the power of Doug Liman as a director. Doug Liman has a history of doing that with films like The Bourne Identity, where you have characters come in and you don't know whether to trust them or not. So I really love the fact that they developed those characters. This film does kind of end in a way where you can tell that they're hoping that this will go off into a franchise. So there's characters like Hildy as well, that's played by Cynthia Erivo, and you kind of think that her character might have more of a part in the later films as well. So there are a few characters that pop up in this film where they're not properly explored, and I guess there's still a lot of questions about Viola as well, because you don't learn a lot about her past other than what you learn about her landing on the planet kind of thing. So I think a few people who have criticized this film saying that there's not characterization there are actually a little bit incorrect, because they're forgetting that this is part one of what they're hoping to be a franchise. So you do learn a lot about characters like Todd, but some of the other characters, they've kept stuff back in the hope that they come out in other films.
Yeah, it definitely leaves you with some questions, and a hope that there's definitely another film coming. Because there's some areas that we hope to be explored. I don't want to give too much away, so I'm not going into too much detail. But yeah, there's definitely some questions there. We went with some beautiful friends of ours, and they were just so excited. Everyone that we spoke to that was there wanted to go away and read the books, and hoping that those movies are going to keep coming.
One other thing I think that people going into this movie are going to be wanting to know as well is Tom Holland and Daisy Ridley's performances. We talked before and said that they're two of the most recognizable people in pop culture cinema at the moment, with Tom Holland being Spider-Man and Daisy Ridley being the star of the last batch of Star Wars movies. I've always been a big fan of Tom Holland ever since The Impossible, the film that he made when he was much younger. What did you think of their performances? Like, is this the kind of film that's going to kind of show people that they do have a future outside of their franchises?
Yeah, I think it shows that they're more diverse than what they've already been in. And I suppose, when you watch a movie, although actors play different characters, you kind of expect to see them within their character and see consistency sometimes in them, whereas a true actor can play a completely different part and you don't connect them with other films. You see them as purely that character for that role. I actually think they both did really well.
Yeah, you didn't get to see it, but I had the pleasure of watching Tom Holland in, I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, the movie that he made last year where they were talking about like the war between the two guys creating electricity in the early days. And he really showed in that film that he is really maturing, and I guess because we've been watching him as Spider-Man for so long, we're almost at that part where it's like we see him in that role, and he's playing a role that's not aging as fast as what he is. So it was great in The Current War, that's what it was called, The Current War, to see him actually play a character that was a little bit closer to his real age, and we saw him mature. Daisy Ridley's been the interesting one, though, because in her career so far, outside of Star Wars, we saw her in Murder on the Orient Express, and a lot of people didn't even realize it was her that was in the film. But she does a lot of voice work, so we haven't really been able to gauge her acting all that well outside of Star Wars. So it's good to see her in another franchise where she gets to play another character that's completely different to her character of Rey, I think. So, to start summing up, is this something that you would like to see go off into like a film 2 or a film 3 down the track?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see, the next chapter of what's happening. Something that you mentioned to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that it was filmed over a number of years?
Yeah, they had so much trouble making this film, which is something that I always think is interesting. I think they ended up filming it over almost 4 years. There was a lot of trouble making this movie. Tom Holland, poor guy, he got injured on set and broke his nose at one point, and then he got sick twice during production, which held things up. And then because, unfortunately, he had to keep on leaving to go and do Avengers, and Daisy Ridley had to keep on leaving to go do Star Wars movies, this film kind of got buffeted around just because of the schedules that everybody had on the film. So the fact that it kind of comes across that it doesn't look disjointed in that sense has worked really well. And I guess that also, in a way, shows what Doug Liman can do as a director, because he hasn't just gone and got the biggest names in American cinema to be in this film. We mentioned before Demian Bichir, the South American actor, and also Mads Mikkelsen, the Danish actor. Mads Mikkelsen does a lot of European cinema, but it's kind of rare these days for him to go across and do an American film. I think he did Doctor Strange a few years ago, but it's actually quite rare for him these days to go and do American films. So, I guess that would have messed them around a little bit as well. So, a bit of a miracle film that it's ended up looking the way it does, I think.
And definitely with young adults, they can change, in appearance over a few years, and you can't tell in the film.
No, I was thinking too, one of the characters in this film is played by Nick Jonas, and of course Nick Jonas I think is probably only he might be nearing 30 now, but yeah, the fact that he would have been making this movie in those years where he went from like being like 22 to 26 kind of thing, you would have expected that he would have aged a little bit when he was making the film. So yeah, that's kind of strange. And I guess he would have had to have left as well, because he did Jumanji, so he probably would have left it at some time to go and do that as well. I guess to finish up though, what are you going to give this one out of 5?
A 4.
Yeah, I think I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 5 as well. I did really, really enjoy it. I think I haven't really had a franchise like this, of this kind of post-apocalyptic feel, since Maze Runner, that I've really fallen in love with. So it's been good to finally have another one that can eagerly wait to see what happens down the line. And I guess that's it for this episode of He Says, She Says Film Reviews. But for now, I've been Dave G.
And I'm Lee G.
And we'll be back very soon with another episode.